What is going on, guys? We are back playing some more Surviving with Create 0.3, and today we're going to be going over the mechanical saw and how you guys can use it to set up a very simple and very effective tree farm that's going to net you way more wood than you could possibly ever need. Now, the design we're going to go over today is going to be a radial version, very similar to the mechanical harvester wheat farm that we set up 2 episodes ago. So if you guys saw that episode, you'll probably notice a ton of similarities between the two. Admittedly, that happens because the mechanical harvester and the mechanical saw function in a very similar way, so there's bound to be a lot of crossover in the setups, which is great because if you understood that setup, that probably means you'll understand this one. Now, one thing I do want to say before we actually start setting it up is that you can set up a mechanical saw farm however you would like. You do not need to make it a radial one, it doesn't need to be this size, so really the only important things you get out of this episode are how the mechanical saws actually work to collect the wood and how the deployers are going to work to replant the saplings once you have. Other than that, you're good to set it up with whatever design you want and have fun with it. I think this is a very simple one to do early game. It's very compact, but by all means, do whatever you guys like, make it look cool, and just have fun with it. So, one other thing I do want to note really quickly, you guys probably already noticed, is that we are not using shaders anymore. Apparently, we reached a point where there was so much going on in the world that we needed to turn shaders off to be able to record at a clean 60 FPS. A little bit unfortunate. I know the base looks a little bit dull now, but regardless, I just wanted to point that out in case you guys had not noticed already, even though I don't really know how you wouldn't. But for today's episode, we are going to need 5 deployers, 5 mechanical saws, 2 portable storage interfaces, a chute, a radial chassis, a windmill bearing, a sail frame, a slime ball, and 3 chests. Now, a couple of these things are going to vary. Obviously, the count of deployers and mechanical saws will vary depending on how long you want the arm to be that is replanting and harvesting the trees. And then we're going to be using the windmill bearing and the sail frame as the method for generating rotational power. Now, if you want to input rotational power into this like we did with the mechanical harvester farm, well, that's totally cool. You can simply use a mechanical bearing and this will function the same way as long as you input the rotational power. But the windmill bearing and the sail frame are a really cool combo that we'll go over today. You guys requested it in the comments on the mechanical harvester video, and it's an easy way to have a self-sustaining farm that you don't actually have to pump rotational power into. So I would definitely give this a try in your world. It's not going to be a very fast farm, but obviously we got to wait for the trees to grow, so the speed of it really isn't that relevant. On top of that, I got a little bit over 2 stacks of oak saplings. You can use this with whatever saplings you want. I'm using it with oak because that's the wood that we will use for the base if I need more of it. I don't think we'll need more than I already have collected in some of these chests here, but if we do, we want to be able to put it to good use. And surprisingly, out of making all the stuff for today's episode, I would say the oak saplings probably took the longest out of everything to get. I clear cut a large chunk of the forest over there, as you can see. It's pretty barren, but now we finally have enough. I don't know if they decreased the drop rate of saplings or something, but I remember I used to have way too many, and now I went to look, and all I had was half a stack, so, but 2 stacks should be sufficient to start out. Now, this is the area we're going to be setting up the tree farm in, and the radial arm is going to be 5 long. So the area that you're going to use will change depending on how you actually scale this up or down. But if you're going to copy the design, then this is what you need. So you're going to want to find the center block here, which is probably going to be this one. And this is where we can base everything off of. So we'll put down the windmill bearing right on the level with the dirt that we want the saplings planted on, and put the radial chassis down on top of that. Now, to give you guys an idea of how you're going to want to set up this area for where the saplings will be planted, because obviously I have it 1 off the ground because I think it looks pretty nice, you are going to go out 4 diagonally, and this is where the last sapling will be planted on the diagonal, and then you're going to want to come out 5 directly away from the radial chassis, and this is where the last sapling will be planted when you come out this direction. So you're going to go out 5 in every direction, and then simply on the corner it's going to be 4. So that's how it's going to look. It's just going to be it's not really a perfect circle, it's a pretty rough one, but that's the area you need. That's where the saplings will go, and then the blocks right in here will not actually get any on them. There's a reason for that though that we will go over later. So once we have down the radial chassis and the windmill bearing, we're going to want to turn one of these sides sticky. So we're going to right click on it with the slime ball. It won't consume it. Do not worry. We don't need all the sides to be sticky, just one. Now, something that I want to note is that in all of the setups I have seen for 0.2 and 0.3 tree farms, people use linear chassis and stuff like that. They are so much bigger than they need to be. Today, we are going to go over how you can make it very compact and not actually waste all these different resources like I've seen with a ton of other setups. So we are going to be putting down the deployers right back here. So we're going to put them down facing backwards. If I could actually click it properly, let's just flip this one. Yep. So we want them facing backwards right here. And we're going to make a row of 5 of these. And these are going to be directly out from the radial chassis. And then we're going to come over here and we can see it is currently at a radius of 8. We want to turn that down to 5 for now. Depending on how you hook up stuff later, we might turn it up to 6, but you can see now that it's going to connect all of these deployers to the radial chassis. Now what we're going to do is come to the other side of this and put down our 5 mechanical saws on the other side of these deployers. So just like that. And if we come back over here and look at this again, you can see it now highlights all the blocks. So now all of these are connected. There's no need for regular blocks to be put down. There's no need for linear chassis to be put down. These will hold on to each other as you're going. And this is totally going to bother me. This needs to be fixed right here. I just have to do it. It was having one of the shaft inputs out the top, which is totally unacceptable. But this will be the main part of the setup. Now, obviously, you can put filters on if you're using different kinds of saplings to make sure that maybe one of the rows is only oak and then you have spruce and all that. But we're using all oak, so we're going to set these all to placing oak saplings. And now we need to worry about putting down the additional things in here. So we need the sail frame to power it, the portable storage interface to actually connect with the other portable one to give us items, and then a chest as the internal buffer for this setup so that it can store all the wood it gets as it goes around somewhere before it dumps it off. So we're going to put a chest right here and a portable storage interface right here. And then we're going to come back over here, and if we look, it's set to 5, so it does not include these. So all we do, scroll up to 6, and now these are linked together. So right now the entire contraption is these blocks right here. The last thing we want to do is toss down a sail frame right here, and we can see if we look, this is now also connected. So none of this will stay behind when it starts moving simply by putting down one sticky side to a radial chassis. Again, I cannot stress this enough. People so overcomplicate these. They make them way bigger than they need to be. I really don't understand why. So here's the most compact version I could come up with. This is an original design. I know a lot of the time designs are based off other ones, but I spent a lot of time in creative testing out designs people had and finding issues with those and trying to optimize them. And I believe this is the best that we're going to get. So a couple things that we want to note about this. These 9 blocks, well, technically it's 8 because one of them is under the radial chassis, but these blocks in the center here will not have saplings planted on them, which is fine. Now, the reason being, whenever you have anything, be it the mechanical saw, mechanical harvesters we saw on the farm up there, those, when they are placed on a radial farm like this, will not collect the 4 blocks on each direction of the radial chassis. I don't know why, but they will not do it, whether it's a tree, grown wheat, anything like that. So that's pretty much a waste to actually put a sapling down there because it's not going to collect it. Now, if you wanted to collect it, it might work if you had an adjacent tree growing and it was able to harvest both of those trees, but then you're gambling on the fact that you will have an adjacent tree grow. Otherwise, your tree farm is always going to have 4 grown trees surrounding the center of this, and it's going to look a little bit weird. So in this setup, we're not going to have any saplings get planted here, which is fine because those ones really wouldn't get harvested anyway. So all I'm going to do is actually put down some polished weathered limestone like I have around the outside here, just to make it look a little bit nicer. And then we're also going to want to leave one block open so that we can right click on the windmill bearing to actually form it, because since we're not inputting rotational power here and we don't have a mechanical bearing, we need to actually turn this into a windmill. So that's why we have the sail block here. This is a very cool trick that you guys can do where this is now considered a windmill. It's going to be very slow, but that still works for the mechanical saws. They're moving, they're running into stuff, so they will cut down the tree and the deployers will continue functioning as they move and place down the saplings. So you can do this with any kind of mechanical farm, mechanical harvester, mechanical saw, mechanical drill. But you can't really increase the speed unless you plan on tacking a ton of sail frames onto it, or wool blocks, whatever kind of sail block you want, and that'll make it way too cumbersome. So one will make it work, but not go very fast. And I also want to note really quickly that allegedly the sail frame working without the wool on it is not a bug, so that they didn't limit people's design abilities in case people didn't want to use a wool covered sail frame. So apparently it's not a bug. You guys are safe to put this down, and it will still catch wind to make the thing spin. I don't really understand how. If someone wants to explain that to me, I would be very appreciative, because it doesn't make sense. But regardless, we should have pretty much everything good to go here. All we got to do is toss down the saplings in this chest right here, and we should be able to click this on. So if we right click on the bearing right there, we can cover up that block, and you can see the deployers will start planting all the trees. Now, this deployer right here on the very close side really doesn't, oh my gosh, way to interrupt the video, guy. But this one doesn't really have much of a function, except it plants one sapling, and that's going to be on every side, this central one right here. But obviously we want it there to make sure the rest of them will plant significantly more. It's just certain ways they orient themselves as it spins around. But you'll notice these trees will actually grow pretty quick. Obviously we have a ton of saplings down, and they should start working. But now it's important that we actually get the wood out of here. So the way we're going to do this is using the portable storage interface, and we're going to watch it as it comes around. It will end right here, the one that we have attached currently. So we're going to want it to be one block away from that. So we'll put this one down right here. And what will happen is we'll watch as it stops. These should connect. It's got no items to transfer, and then it'll go on its merry way. Now, to get the actual items out of here, what we need to do is get rid of the block below it. And we want to clear out the blocks right here and right here. And you can also put these, like we did with the mechanical harvester, onto a belt, and you don't need to do this, but you're going to need to use a chute to drop items from this down. Now, if you were using a belt, you can have them kicked right out the back using a funnel, but this will not directly input into a chest. You need to have a way to pull out of here and drop them into something for it to pull the items. So if you had this going around and had a storage interface here without the chute, well, then no items would ever come from this. It would just stop for a second and keep going, and eventually this chest would fill up. Now, I don't know if we have bone meal in the base. I think we probably do. So eventually these will start growing pretty rapidly, but obviously since they were all just placed down, they're not going to for a little bit. So we can grab out some bone meal from my chest, which is becoming increasingly filled with extra seeds and bread since our farm is so efficient. But if we just want to bone meal this a couple times, we can see, there we go. We got one to grow. See if we can get another one. Nope. Apparently we weren't that lucky, but we'll end up with a lot more bone meal later when we start making compost from all the seeds we have. But we can come over here and watch this go around, and once it collides with this tree, it will start slowly breaking it. It will collect everything at once, put it into this chest here, and then it will transfer when we get right over here to this chest, and we can also watch it replant the sapling. So obviously not moving very quick, but it doesn't take long to make its way through that tree right there. It immediately collects everything, which is great, including the leaves. And we can watch as it replants the sapling right here as it passes by. And once it gets over here, it'll transfer the items. And not a moment too soon, because it is becoming nighttime out. And I really don't want to die, since I died when I was AFK at my bread factory over there. And we had two issues. Things overflowed because I was AFK for like 12 hours, and I died, unfortunately. So a little bit rough, but I'm not looking to die again. So we'll see these connect, and down here you can see we got 26 saplings, 3 oak logs, and an apple, and everything over here was replanted, and it's all good to go. So I think this looks super nice. I also really like the polished weathered limestone. So the reason I did that, by the way, if you guys were curious, is because normally I would do wood on that, because I think it looks very nice around the outside. But if one of these side trees grows there is the possibility that the saw will read all of this as one big tree, because any connected pieces of oak log will be considered one tree and be cut down at one time when it harvests all of it. So all the wood around the outside will be collected. So if you're setting this up in a base made of logs, or you have logs anywhere near this, be very careful, because there is a very high likelihood that when it collects a tree on the edge, it could possibly collect a lot more than that. So if it ever touched this, it would collect both of these. If it ever touched this, it would collect all the wood down here. So just something to be very cautious about. But I think that's going to be it for today, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed today's episode. And I do want to note that the next episode that we are going to have is going to be going over the flywheel and furnace engine, which is the main reason you would want to set one of these tree farms up. You might not want to do all the building with the resources you get from it. Obviously, like I said, I don't need more logs. We have plenty right here to pretty much sustain us through the rest of the series, both with building and with crafting. But we want to make charcoal so we can run the flywheel and furnace engine as a really good way to get additional rotational power. It's one of the best ways, actually, and one of the easiest ways when you have a farm like this. So I think it's worth at least setting up one of these in whatever world you're playing with Create in, because even if you're not going to use for actual, building, you can use the wood for other stuff. So again, hopefully you guys enjoyed today's episode, and I will talk to you later.